All right, what's going on, everybody? August 3rd, Thursday, almost through the first full week of C2-A-Days. I'm going to be honest, I don't know how these football players do it, Nick. I'm already tired, and we've only done this for 4 days, and you've actually done all the heavy lifting on the morning show. I haven't even been here, so we're not even being that physical, if we're being honest with this stuff. But it's been fun. Already a ton of great news, and we've got a bunch more for you guys today. So I'm gonna let you kick it off in the SEC.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's interesting to see how it's. Obviously we're not doing anything close to what these other what the people we're talking about are dealing with, but you can tell that towards the end of the week the grind is starting to set in just a little bit. But hey, that we're enjoying it and getting a lot of hopefully good information for folks out there at Auburn. Good place to start, I think. There was good news, there was bad news ahead of the first fall practice on Thursday. There was a paper official camp roster handed out to the media that did include running back Jarquez Hunter's name, which, good news. That's at least a step maybe in the right direction. He's going to be at Auburn this fall, but Hunter did not practice, sat out, and according to Nathan King of 247 Sports, it was not for an injury-related reason. So something to monitor. Hugh Freeze, I believe, said he wasn't going to be commenting on that. But not only is Jarquez Hunter not practicing right now, or at least on Thursday, we'll see if it's an extended absence. But the Tigers are also without probably their number 2 running back, at least on paper, in USF transfer Brian Petit, who will be limited early with a foot injury. Matt Cohen of AL.com noted that Peyton Thorne was the first quarterback in 11 on-air drills and, quote, took a handful of snaps with what appeared to be a group resembling the first-team offense. So that's the, what we're trying to parse right here. Can't tell. New head coach, new players all over the place. But if sounds like Matt Cohen making his best guess there, looked like Peyton Thorne was working with what we would consider, at least early on day one, the first team offense. Hugh Freeze was quoted. Cohen was there to quote him as they're all going to rotate through the first 5 practices really evenly amongst the 1s and 2s and 3s, talking about quarterbacks, and then continuing, we'll evaluate all those reps and kind of recalibrate and sit down and kind of go through there after the first 5. So sounds like maybe Peyton Thorne might not be number 1 tomorrow, but usually in my experience the first practice gives you a pretty good idea of where the coaches where their heads are at going into fall camp. But somewhat surprising maybe to some, Holden Guriner, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, my apologies, was the quarterback who took the second snaps ahead of returning starter Robbie Ashford. So we'll just have to see. Hugh Freeze, another quote that didn't really actually say anything, said, yeah, absolutely, we'll have a starter. There'll be a guy, but he mentioned, does it remain bona fide? Show me the stats from game 1. It comes down to how the quarterback, how is the quarterback judged? How's he judged? How the team plays around him, and his win-loss record. So not a whole lot of information on detail, but I guess facts are facts that Peyton Thorne was the first quarterback in line today, according to the folks there in person.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see who ends up getting that job. We've seen what Hugh Freeze has been able to do with his quarterbacks, obviously at Liberty, so a little bit lesser competition than what he's going to face, obviously, in the SEC with Auburn. But, I mean, Peyton Thorne, while not the rusher that Robbie Ashford is, he can move a little bit, too. I think people overlook that. We'll see. I do think it's pretty surprising that Holden Grenier was over Robbie Ashford. I mean, I know there's a couple guys here at C2C who thought Ashford was kind of locked in to be the starter, and we're projecting him to be good. I mean, our own Felix Sharp talking about him possibly being the next quote-unquote Anthony Richardson. Not great. He's not going to start, so yeah. Moving over to Cincinnati. Following up on our discussion about the Bearcats' first practice, head coach Scott Satterfield offered an interesting quote about the RB situation on Tuesday, according to Russ Heltman of All Bearcats. He said, I don't think it will be several guys. I do think it'll be several guys, not just one. I do think it's going to be a committee approach unless one or two guys really just stand out over the next couple of weeks. Heltman observed Miles Montgomery stood out to me above all the others in this new scheme, with Corey Kiner and Ethan Wright looking strong as well.
Yeah, a little bit of a surprise. I think most of us, or at least I personally, felt like Corey Kiner maybe was the favorite there. Satterfield has had some committee situations. Most recently at Louisville last year, had a turned to several different guys. But I know prior to that, it seemed like more often than not, if memory serves, he really liked to find one guy and kind of feed him. And at App State in particular, it seemed like he was willing to give a really heavy workload when necessary. So Kiner, in my opinion, seemed like maybe the best bet there. But according to reporter there in person, Montgomery stood out the most. But the quote with Satterfield might be dividing that workload quite a bit more than expected. One guy who maybe won't have to divide, won't have to share his workload very much. Raheem Sanders. There were, quotes and videos circulating early Thursday of Sam Pittman, his head coach, talking about his 242-pound running back, quote along the lines of, you pinch him and nothing moves. So basically, he's 242. No fat on him. His name is Rocket. I mean, hard to imagine a more impressive collection of attributes for a running back.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive year for him. Some people have already talked about him being the RB1, and not just him. You've got Braylon Allen, who's also a massive human being. Both those guys in this draft class probably going to put the smaller, speedy running backs to the test here for NFL GMs. And if they're going to end up taking these guys who both are, I mean, honestly, freaks in nature. I think Braylon Allen, last I saw, was weighing in around 250, 260. So you got him all the way up there running over 21 miles per hour. Raheem Sanders at 242 now doing the same thing. I mean, it's going to be a fun season for both of these running backs.
Definitely.
Moving over to Arizona State, Chris Cartman of Sun Devil Sultry mentioned QB Drew Pine had his best performance during Thursday's practice as the Notre Dame transfer competes with Trenton Bourgeau for the top spot on the depth chart. Though Bourgeau has been better through 4 days, he should still be considered the leader, according to Cartman. Jaden Rashada had a nice check and hanging in the pocket. Made a nice check and is hanging in the pocket trying to execute rather than get skittish and run, which is definitely good to see out of a true freshman quarterback. But it is still all happening too fast for him. I would be shocked if he comes on quick enough to beat out the other two. It is Pine and Bourgeau. Jordan Tyson, doubtful to open the season. Tevin White was the first RB to get reps early in spring camp.
Yeah, a couple of surprises, and we had a pretty good understanding. I think that Jordan Tyson's injury from last year when he was at Colorado was probably going to limit him early on. But most of us, I know, a lot of the CFF folks, Cameron Skedebo, the transfer from Sacramento State, was the highest drafted Arizona State running back. And most things that I saw indicated that Tevin White might be third in the pecking order with DeCarlos Brooks, the transfer from Cal, in the mix as well. But apparently White impressed leading up into fall camp, is getting a lot of work early on. But the note on Rashada, one good note, and then Cartman did throw in some stats in a particular drill where he was 1 for 6 and threw a pick, and just apparently a little bit of an adjustment period, which is not, too not too surprising for a true freshman, even one as talented as Jaden Rashada. Tennessee, there is a little bit of not necessarily bad news, maybe too early to tell, but Squirrel White, who, again, from a CFF perspective, is considered the number one option there, going very early in drafts all off season. Apparently, he's been limited in the early days of fall camp due to injury. As a result, it's Oregon transfer Dante Thornton, who's been first in line at the slot position, and Thornton, Brew McCoy, and Ramel Keaton, who is back and fully healthy, good to see, have been the first team group for the wide receivers. That's according to Patrick Brown of GoVols.com. GoVols 247.
That's massive, as we obviously want the number one, probably number one and number two wide receiver in this offense. And we've heard a lot about that. I know Chris Moxley's talked a little bit about it on different shows. A lot of the other beat reporters around Tennessee over the past couple of weeks have been saying that they actually think it's going to be Dante Thornton, not Squirrel White, who is going to be the guy. I wonder if that's just because they knew of the injury beforehand or what, but that's definitely interesting. As you mentioned, Squirrel White getting drafted much, much earlier than any of the other wide receivers in this offense. North Carolina, Omarion Hampton was the first running back getting snaps, according to 24/7 Sports, with Elijah Green also in the mix with the first group. The top wide receiver group included Tez Walker, Kobe Paysour, and Gavin Blackwell, with Nate McCullum working in the tight end group was led by Kamari Morales with John Copenhaver, and Bryson Nesbitt was also getting reps. Kind of surprising seeing Bryson Nesbitt there as the three, as a guy that we also really liked, especially in the fantasy circles.
For sure. And I'm a huge Bryson Nesbitt fan, have been for a while. His performance in the bowl game last year, I thought, was incredibly impressive. It's a little bit of a surprise. Kamari Morales is the returning starter, has been. And we've got a new play caller. With Chip Lindsey now there at North Carolina, who has a history of not necessarily highlighting the tight end position. So I'm this isn't the best news for me especially, but folks who are invested in Bryson Nesbitt. But it's also there's still plenty of time, and I think that he'll be able to bounce back. It sounded like Nesbitt, according to some reports, had maybe a little bit of a struggle in practice as well. Had a bad drop apparently.
Gotcha.
But we'll see. I think there's plenty of time for it to shake out. I'm not giving up hope just yet, but we're obviously have been wondering all off season who is going to be Drake May's primary group that he's working with, and to see the transfer Tez Walker right up there at the top, and seeing Paysour, who took a step last year, but Gavin Blackwell's a name that hasn't gotten a lot of buzz this offseason, so good note there. Utah did do a little reading up on the wide receiver group from Joe Coles and the Deseret News. Devon Vele is entering his fifth season, apparently. Or he has told Coles that entering camp, the game really has slowed down for him, even though Vele is likely to be the top receiver again. The Utes should have more depth at that position, perhaps, than they have in the past. Position coach Alvis Whitted was most complimentary of Money Parks for his progress in the offseason, said that he had the best offseason of the group. Head coach Kyle Whittingham was also impressed with Florida State transfer Micah Pittman, who has seemingly overcome what appeared to be reported to be a very significant hip injury early in the season ahead of his departure from Florida State. Here's a quote from Whittingham, according to Coles. Micah Pittman looked really good today. He's got a good skill set, soft hands, catching punts, excellent hands out of the slot on offense. And Vele actually compared Pittman and the work he's doing in the slot to Britton Covey. So kind of an interesting comparison there. And finally, Coles mentioned that freshman Mikey Matthews, who was very impressive during the spring, also is expected to be part of the rotation. So for a while there, we didn't get a whole lot of value out of the Utah receiving group. The tight end position, of course, has carried the way for the most part. But seems like they're at least excited about this quartet of receivers that are going to be in the mix for Utah.
Moving over to Florida, it is no surprise that Graham Mertz has been getting a majority of the first-team reps at quarterback for the Gators through the first 3 practices. Kevin Brockway of the Gainesville Sun has reported that Mertz has consistently displayed accuracy thus far in camp. Injury notes, according to Brockway: freshman wide receiver Eugene Wilson III, sophomore wide receiver. I should have figured out a way to not get this one. Thigh Chikoa Bowman, let's hope. I apologize. That's probably really, really wrong. And walk-on receiver Brian Green Jr. were on the sidelines in non-contact jerseys, as was offensive lineman Micah Mazakua.
Yeah, so not surprising that Mertz is getting the majority of reps.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more surprising that apparently he's been consistent and really accurate. But I know a lot of folks are high on Eugene Wilson, so hopefully he'll be able to get back quickly. And TCB, I know, sounded like toward the end of last year, so hopefully he'll be back soon as well. At Kansas State, Kellis Robinette of the Wichita Eagle observed the top 4 pass catchers for every drill were RJ Garcia, Phillip Brooks, Seth Porter, and Iowa transfer Keegan Johnson. Jaden Jackson, who I personally had read some positive coverage of during the offseason, he and Sterling Lockett, according to Robinette, showed promise, but it appeared that they were sort of in a tier behind that top 4. That group of wide receivers fielded passes from, of course, Will Howard, number 1, but then Jake Rubley was number 2 in drills, and Avery Johnson was 3rd in order for the defending Big 12 champions. And a note on the offensive line, position of strength for Kansas State. 35-game starter Christian Duffy reportedly suffered a foot injury during the offseason. That has sidelined him. He's a starter at right tackle early in fall camp. Was apparently on the sideline, going through some things, but not dressed fully for practice. So something to monitor potentially for Kansas State. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was going to say I'm going to be excited to continue to hear if Avery Johnson gets more reps. He's a guy that some of the guys on our recruiting team really liked. I think it could be a very fun player for them moving forward. LSU, John Emery Jr. is reportedly nearing his return to the practice field. Though Emery was unavailable to practice Thursday, Glenn West of 24/7 Sports reported he should return Friday. So it sounds like finally getting that academic issue cleared up, which unfortunately then only muddles this LSU backfield even more for us, at least from the fantasy side of things.
Definitely. In the Seattle Times today, there was Seattle Times and Spokesman Review. Greg Woods put together 5 takeaways from the opening day of Washington State's fall camp, and a note that caught my eye. I'm more interested maybe than most out there seem to be about the tight end position at Washington State. We haven't really seen it factor in much in recent years. Ben Arbuckle is now the offensive coordinator coming over from Western Kentucky, where they have had some success at tight end. According to these takeaways, one was that several players are in the mix for snaps at tight end. It sounds like Billy Reverie, who was impressed both in spring practice and apparently had a 38-yard pass in. I'm doing this one on the fly. We're trying to get notes so quick that Anyway, Reverie is sounds like first in the pecking order, junior Cooper Mather, sophomore Andre Dollar, who I know is really highly rated coming out of high school, and redshirt senior Cameron Johnson are in the mix as well. Apparently it's a very competitive group, but a position that I think is got the potential to provide some value. There are also several freshmen who have caught the eye of the coaching staff, one of whom we might want to know for fantasy purposes, wide receiver Carlos Hernandez, who we did see, according to, I believe it was 247 site, Washington State site, listed at projected 2 deep, and Hernandez is listed as one of the 2 deep outside receivers. I know there had been some hope that he was going to be a slot guy, but could potentially factor in, and certainly expecting a lot of opportunities for receivers in this offense, especially with Ben Arbuckle coming over from Western Kentucky.
Yeah, Carlos Hernandez, that is not a name, I'll be honest, I've ever heard of. So that'll be a very intriguing player to kind of at least add to your watch list if your draft's already done. Moving over to Utah State, head coach Blake Anderson held a press conference recapped by our own Nate Marquise, in which he mentioned the Aggies will prioritize getting the football to one wide receiver, Terrell Vaughn, and operate at a faster pace than recent seasons.
Good news for CFF folks for sure. And then one more transfer portal note. Seems like we've got 1 or 2 each episode so far this fall camp. New Liberty head coach Jamie Chadwell landed a commitment from one of his former Coastal Carolina players on Thursday when the versatile Aaron Bedgood, who's played both wide receiver and running back, announced that he would join the Flames. Bedgood should offer depth following the news that we mentioned earlier this week that 2 Liberty wide receivers suffered season-ending injuries ahead of fall camp.
All right, well, that will do it for us today. Nick will be back actually hosting both episodes tomorrow, so make sure to tune in for those. I'm sure as every school, I believe, will already be now into fall camp at least multiple days, so a ton of Pac-12. Might have a bunch of breaking Pac-12 news over tonight, honestly, but that we will talk about on different shows. Everybody have yourselves a great day. Make sure to turn in again tomorrow morning for Nick as he gives you guys more of these fall camp news.